All right. Happy Friday to you all. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I thought I'd stream from a different streamer tonight, and let's see how this goes. I want to see if this is better than StreamYard because honestly, I'm fed up with StreamYard. I'm fed up with the prices. I'm fed up with all the things that have to do with it. Because it seems when I go live, it always has some kind of issue. I hope everybody's getting the notification bell. If not, be sure to hit the notification and let people know that this is the place to be. Once again, my name is 12 Gauge, and I hope that you are having a wonderful night. I'm just sending out a notification letting everyone know that I'm live. So hopefully we can have some people in this chat. By the way, you know, StreamYard is different than this because StreamYard gives you that opportunity to appear more in control, but this is easier to maneuver. I just got to get the hang of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about true crime tonight because I've done some videos. I did some videos today that really got my mind going a little bit. It got my mind going on the investigative process. And I started to do something last night on this, and StreamYard, it booted me. Like in the middle of my freaking presentation, it freaking booted me. So I don't know if Restream's going to be able to hold on. Hopefully, it will not boot me. Hopefully, I'll be able um, to be okay. I just sent out a notification, so hopefully people will show up. If not, it's just you and I. You and I. One thing I did notice about this that difficult is the camera. Like I can't turn the camera on. I don't know how. I guess I got to upgrade in order to use the camera, which is not a big deal if this restream is pretty good. I will definitely pay for it. Well, let me start off and get this thing that I did. This paper that I wrote. But first things first, before I even go over that, I want to do some. Let me see if I still have some of my books. Because if I do, I want to go ahead and discuss a little bit of the stuff that I talked about over the years regarding criminal investigation. I did one today that was talking about intent versus motive. And it's in my library. And it's pretty darn good if I say so myself. Hey, Aquarius, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. I don't know how to do the mod thing over here or if it's already like in check. I feel like a new like a kid with a new toy, you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. Let me see if I can get the book that I'm looking for. because I should be able to because I've damn books. So I should be able to authorize them. Not to. Who knows? We'll see. So I hope that you're in for a good time tonight because I do want to talk about intent and everything. Let me see if these books are still in my library. They are. Awesome Blossom. I probably will do a lot more videos like if this is really. Let me go ahead and let you guys see what I'm doing. I'm going to be talking about um, just sharing about true crime because I have all kinds of stuff to give people the insights of what real criminology is. And I guess we'll start with general characteristics of crime and criminals. Can you see that on the screen? Let me know if you can see that on the screen. Let me close some of these boxes. Can you see that on the screen? Let me know. Can you put a yes in the chat? I know there's probably a delay, but I want to talk about interpreting crime data. It says, we discussed at length the necessity of carefully examining the database of other sources of criminological research findings and conclusion. This advice is especially applicable presented in this chapter. So we're going to see official statistics, victim surveys, self-reports, as well as the type of crime or criminality that is being addressed, whether traditional crime or crime by the elite. The particular method chosen for this analysis provides data and flavor to the types of theory developed. So we're going to be able to, I'm going to be able to take you through exactly the real stuff versus all the fluff that you see in the true crime YouTube. And I hope you don't get bored. Yeah, this is my criminology book from school. It says the Ashai Shinbun. It says organized crime groups, often the power void. Having previously controlled the black market, such groups were well trained for new legal capitalism. Such increased levels of crime have also experienced throughout former Soviet satellite countries and throughout the world. In the Baltic states, the People's Republic of China, South Africa, and even Vietnam. There have been a number of international crime victimization surveys sponsored by the United Nations, with studies begun in 1989, 92, 96, and 2000. The 2000 study involved 92 surveys in 56 countries and expanded to the Czech Republic. The last survey found that the US, Canada, and the Czech Republic rank among the highest for burglary, motor vehicle theft, and petty crime. Other countries with higher levels of these crimes are Bulgaria, Estonia, and Slovakia. Low property crime victimization rates were found in Belarus, Norway, Switzerland, and Macedonia. High violence rates were found in countries of the former Soviet Union, such as Estonia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia. The U.S. has high violence scores compared to levels in Canada and Western Europe nations. Particularly low violence levels were found in Western European nations such as France, Germany, Holland, Hungary, and Macedonia. So now we're going to get to the prevalence of crime. So this is a true crime channel. So I want to give you the insight of what the real deal is. At a time on the true crime channel, we don't get the real deal. We don't get the real deal about what criminal aspects of crime are. We just get opinions. We just get people's opinions. So estimates of the extent of crime commission depend on how far wide one wishes to cast the net. As one moves from official statistics, the UCR, which is the Uniform Crime Report, to Victim Survey, National Crime Victimization Survey, to self-report surveys, its rates increase. Inclusion of other forms of non-traditional criminality, such as corporate crime or tax avoidance, would make crime seem even more pervasive. So here is the crime in the U.S. in 2016. The population of 323,107,513 people. Most of the offenses were violent crime, which was 1,248,185, the rate per 100,000 people. So if your city was over 100,000 people, it was 386.3 per 100,000 people. So that's how many people were affected. The property crime was 7,919,035 per 100,000 people, 2,450.7. Murder, 17,250, 5.3% per 100,000 people. So rape is 130,603, 40.4 per 100,000 people. Robbery, 332,198, 102.8 per 100,000 people. Aggravated assault, 803,007, 248 people, 0.5 per 100,000 people. Burglary is 1,515,098, 468.9 per 100,000 people. Larceny or theft is 5,638,455, 1,745 per 100,000 people. Vehicle theft is 765,484. This is 236.9 per 100,000 people. So I want you to remember a term that I'm giving you, which is the UCR. This is the crime report, uniform crime report that the FBI uses. And all these crimes are reported to the FBI so they can keep a running statistics of the crimes in the US. So DUI 99.36 or 0.0664%. And then it goes down to drunkenness, prostitution, forgery, vagrancy, fraud, offenses against the family and children, embezzlement, all other offenses except traffic, drug abuse violations, gambling, murder, and manslaughter, which is 92.77% or 7.123. Aggravated assault, which was 92.99% or 7.31. So the uniform crime report is really essential when you're reporting crime. And this says these are in considering crimes, it's important to realize that we were to consider the full range of economic crimes, such as the impact of the corporate price fixing, then in the fact where every household had been touched by crime. Casting a wider net, where we consider self-report data, particularly of minor offenses, we would conclude that criminality is pervasive. Despite problems in instruments used and samples drawn, self-report studies provide much-needed evidence of the extensiveness of hidden criminality and law violation. One may control misunderstanding or overgeneralizations in referring to criminals by using operational definitions such as those arrested or those identified by victims or those admitting to certain offenses. Due to the age and crime, most of those arrested are young. The Context 3.3 presents data on ages of those arrested for particular crimes. That was the one that I was going over a while ago. The peak arrest age for property crime is 16, and the age 18 is the peak age for violent crime. So, usually the peak age for violent crime, as it's saying, is 18. That's, can you think of, chat, any of the reasons why that would be the peak age for violent crime? Age 18. Type it in the chat. Overall, crime commission declined with age. So that merely just states the older we get, the less people commit crimes in theory. So the younger people are, the more crime and criminal activity that they're into. Particularly glaring is the involvement of the younger groups in serious property crimes. It is important to note that although most persons arrested and convicted as adult criminals were first arrested as juveniles. Well, let me give you a little side note there. We don't arrest juveniles. We place them in custody. It is a thing. Juveniles are never arrested. They're just taken into custody. There's a difference. It's the wording, it's the application of the whole thing. To take a juvenile in custody means that you're detaining them to either release them back to the parents, or if the crime is violent enough, you're going to send them on to detention or something of that sort. Most juvenile delinquents do not become adult criminals. Youthful offenders in urban areas are probably overrepresented in arrest statistics. Such areas have more efficient formalized policing, and youth generally have less power than their elders to shield themselves from arrest. Juveniles also commit the types of crimes on which municipal police departments tend to concentrate, excluding common youth offenses such as curfew and runaway violations, which, let me give you another bit of information there. Those are called status crimes. So, if you ever hear that word, status, that refers to runaways or crimes that are Class B and so on. Because a Class B crime is a misdemeanor, which is not really detainable for juveniles. Okay. Assuming juvenile offenders are often handled and recorded differently depending on police jurisdiction, the median age for arrested robbers, burglars, thieves, auto thieves, arsonists, and vandals is under 20 in all categories. Estimates of the average age of embezzlers, price fixers, bribers, and the like considerably alter this age profile. However, because these crimes are committed by older criminals, the grain of America, with a large proportion of the population becoming elderly, has led to forecasts of an increase in the number of older criminals. Okay, so we're going to talk about traditional crime. Let me know how things are going regarding this so far. Are you enjoying it? Are you not? Does it seem too classroom like? Do you want me to change the approach? I'm really just testing the restream to see if the voice is clear, if the stream is faster, um, if anything like that is going okay, because I plan on using this a lot more if it is indeed a lot more clearer, if it's a lot faster. So if we're going to talk about different crimes, this says crime is not a strictly local or even national problem. Although its impact is felt at the local level, much crime is internationally conditioned and coordinated. For instance, the connection between street crime, the importation and dissemination of drugs is well established. You know, one thing I can tell you that I've noticed, whether I'm live, whether I'm uploading, a lot of the stuff doesn't get that kind of play. Like right now, I have one person in here, and that person is probably myself, which, you know, I understand that the other stuff really, the gossip and all that other bullshit sells. And to a lot of people that are just in it to listen to endless rambles and not really understand it, it's easy to just turn it on and just kind of zone out. This type of stuff seems like you're in school. It seems like you're just being taught versus you having the possibility to just be listening to an open dialogue. But there's one of the reasons why I do this because I started my channel for this reason because people always say, well, that's not possible. We want answers. We want we want to know the truth. Well, if you really want to know the truth, here are plenty of books that tells you about it. And these are the books that I had to read and take courses from in order to get my bachelor's, especially this one. But yeah, when you try to educate people on the real deal, it's almost like pulling teeth. They don't want to know the real stuff. They just want to know this type of stuff. So let's go to this. Let's let's talk about the differences between mass and spree murder because whenever you're hearing these cases and they're talking about that was a spree murder or that was a mass murder, most people have to Google that and they don't know, even after they Google it, what the real definition of it is. They don't. And then they go repeat on another channel what Google says, and therefore they're just misrepresenting the definition of what these things really talk about. So, mass murder is the killing of several people at one location that begins and ends within a few minutes or hours, usually with the death of the killer by suicide. Well, does that imply any of the current cases that we on this channel have talked about? Would this imply the Idaho 4 case? Well, the killer didn't kill himself, but there was the killing of several people at one location. Or was it a spree murder? This is the killing of several people at different locations over a period of several days. Research suggests that the time frame involved is the only factor that differentiates mass and spree killers, and both mass and spree killers are different from the serial killer. So I'm telling you, if we're talking about the Idaho 4 case, because that seems to be popular, it's old news, but it's popular every night, every day, whenever. So I always use it as an example because people can understand it and identify it, okay? The Idaho 4 case was a mass murder by definition, okay? Even though the killer did not kill himself by suicide, it was more implicated by definition rather than the spree murder, which a lot of people say that that was a spree killing, which was not. Because by definition, the spree killing is the killing of several people at different locations over a period of several days. So think about that a little bit. Think about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about involuntary manslaughter, a criminal homicide where an unintentional killing results from a reckless act. So this would be defined possibly as drinking and driving. You're drunk, you kill your passenger, it could be involuntary manslaughter. The next one could be negligent homicide or negligent manslaughter, an unintentional homicide charge when the death or deaths arise from negligent act that carries a substantial risk of death to others. Once again, mass murder, the killing of several people at one location within minutes or hours. So let's quit calling the Idaho 4 case a spree killing because it's not. Spree murder, the killing of several people at different locations over several days. That would imply that this person went on a killing spree in different locations over different days, and they didn't know who it was, what they were doing, and all this and above. Hey, Kels, thank you for being here. Aquarius is still here. Thank you. I know this is not the most exciting stuff, but you know what? It's educational and it gives you a real step up to really understanding true crime. Mass murders are divided into two types: those who choose specific targets the killer believed to have caused him stress, e.g., disgruntled, and those who attack targets having no connection with the killer but who belong to groups the killer dislikes, such as prostitutes or people of different race. So, if we're talking about Idaho, this is one of the things that people early on in the case, they were saying that the killer disliked the lifestyle of those 4 kids. So that would hold true because they were from a different type of environment than Koberger was, right? Such people rarely just snap and kill people around them. So I didn't write this book. Professors and people with higher education, doctorates, and everything else wrote this. But you know what? We have people on YouTube that say, this is not real stuff. This is, what do they call it? They call it a fairy tale. So this just says such people just rarely just snap and kill people at random. So since we're talking Idaho, think about that a little bit. So he didn't just snap and go kill them random people. Most mass murderers are motivated by hatred that simmers until some specific event provides the flame that brings it to a boil. And we've always talked about that. We talked about how he had such hatred for a group of people until one day he just snapped. But he didn't just snap because the flame was boiling underneath. Many people think he just snapped. He snapped because he was going to get fired from his TA job. No, he didn't snap. He was boiling already. So he was an individual that was boiling beneath the surface. It says Mark Lapine, for instance, had been denied admission into the engineering school at the University of Montreal and sought revenge on women who had taken his place in a man's profession by killing 14 women and wounding 13. Colin Ferguson, who killed 6 people and wounded 19 others on a Long Island commuter train in 1993, hated whites and claimed a black rage at what he saw as society's mistreatment of blacks led him to his rampage. Jiverly Wong shot and killed 13 people and wounded 4 others at an immigration center in Binghamton, New York in 2009, and then shot himself Wong apparently disliked Americans because he felt they were prejudiced toward him, although most of his victims were fellow immigrants, and was embarrassed by his poor English. Then there was Robert Bowers, who in 2018 used an AR-15 to murder 11 Jews at a synagogue in Pittsburgh after yelling, "All Jews must die." These men methodically and selectively chose their victim based on some alleged wrong done to them by a group of their targeted victims that they represented. The deadliest mass spree killing in history occurred on July 22nd, 2011, when Anders Breivik murdered 69 teenagers in Jutland in Norway. Before the shooting, Breivik detonated a car bomb at Oslo, killing 8, bringing his total to 7 dead and 96 injured. Breivik planned the massacres in 2009 and was detained by court psychiatrists. He was sentenced to life in prison. There's no death penalty in Norway. So that's huge. Spree killers move from victim to victim in rapid succession, and like mass murderers, make little effort to hide their activities or avoid detection. So that's what Kohberger did. He didn't make any qualms about being detected or being seen on camera. He didn't. We can all agree on that. The guy in Delphi didn't make any qualms about being seen on the bridge. You know? It said spree killers as if driven by some frenzied compulsion. Spree killing is rare, but spree killing teams are even rarer and are typically composed of a dominant leader and a submissive lover. The most recent spree killer team in the U.S. was snipers John Muhammad and Lee Malvo, who killed 13 random individuals and wounded 6 others in Washington, D.C. area in 2002. Although the team killed without regard to race or gender, Muhammad belonged to the Nation of Islam, which may have provided the ideological impetus to his vicious spree. We can make relatively few generalities about mass and spree killers because they are so rare. Most research of these individuals come from interviews with the families and friends, and sometimes notes left by the offender. Because the offender typically commits suicide or is killed by the police at or near the scene of the crime, reviews of the literature Fox and Levin 2001 note several commonalities shared by the American mass and spree murderers. So here's some commonalities shared by these people. And I want you to listen to this because I want you to think of the crimes that you've followed over the years. Are these on point? Or are they a little off? Or they don't relay at all? They're typically white males with an age range broader than the serial killers. African Americans are overrepresented in terms of their proportion in the population. They have previously displayed impulsive, violent, frustrated, depressed, alienated, and anti authoritarian behavior arising from a deep sense of having been wronged. They tend to have a morbid fascination with guns and to own many of them. Their behavior at the time of the crime, as well as the fact that it is typically committed in public places, makes it obvious they are unconcerned about their own death, leading some researchers to view this type of murder as an elaborate suicide attempt. They seem to contemplate committing murder and prepare for the act, although the time and place of the offense is not generally pre-established. Crime in general, spree and mass murders increased considerably in the U.S. from the 1960s throughout the 1990s. The average age of all mass murders over the past 40 years is 29. And how old was Kohberger? He was 28. So he fit within that average range, right? Of course. Think of a lot of the killers that we talk about, they fit within that range because their brain had just fully developed at 26, 27, and then something happens in between 26 and 30. I wish I knew what it was, but living through that age myself, that was a very confusing time. Well, let's talk about serial murder. This is the killing of three or more victims over an extended period with a cooling off period in between kills. Unlike mass and spree killers who almost invariably use guns, serial killers tend to favor hands on killing, often with torture. In 2007, the FBI held a symposium on serial killers that included 135 expert law enforcement officers, mental health specialists, and criminologists who specialize in serial killing research. This group of experts put together 7 commonly believed myths about serial killers. Here we go. Serial murder more victims over an extended period of time. So, if you're really thinking about that and you're really understanding it, you understand that serial killers, number one, let's go with myth number one. Serial killers are all just. The truth is that most serial killers have families, homes, and gainful employment. Some have been churchgoers and law enforcement officers that hide in plain sight. Why their neighbors are shocked to hear that such a nice man was a serial killer, and why are they so often overlooked by law enforcement. So, chat, tell me, you hear that all the time, right? You hear that serial killers are loners, they're that disturbed individual that out of nowhere comes out of their little cave and commits all these crimes, go back to their cave. That's not always true. That's not always true. The fact is, most of them have families. Most of them have positions in the community where they're high functioning in the community. They hold offices and things like that. They're very in plain sight. So whenever one of these individuals commits a crime, it's almost like a shocker because there's no way that person, they're such a nice person. So the myth of them being just alienated from society, that is a myth. So that's why whenever we're talking about some of these crimes in true crime, you have to ask yourself, these people that many people gave the impression of, they're loners, they're secluded, they don't have men, all this and that and the other. That is dramatization. Dramatization. How many times Kohberger and the way that he supposedly stared at women, his creepiness, his vibe. He didn't have many friends. And I know I've reported it on my channel as well, and about her, but I didn't because obviously I'm out of practice with what I learned. And so Kohberger was not the considered loner that many people looked at him as because his profile, even though he only had so many contacts in his phone, he still was connecting socially with people. He was connecting with people at the pool party. He was connecting with people. Hell, he was connecting with that lady at Costco. He's connecting with his students. Yeah, they have normal lives. Number two, serial killers are all white males. This is a myth. The reality is that white males are very much unrepresented among serial killers in proportion to the numbers in the population. Hickey, 2006, claimed that about 44% of serial killers operating from 1995 to 2004 have been African American, which is about 3.4 times greater than expected by the proportion of African Americans in the population. More recently, the Radford University Serial Killer Information Center found that since 2000, African Americans have been 59.8% of serial killers in the U.S. Whites is 30.8%, Hispanic 6.7%, and Asian Americans 0.09%. The only known Asian American serial killer operating in the U.S. during the 20th century was Charles Ng, who with Leonard Lake killed at least 19 people in the early 1980s. And that, if you want to check out that live, it is in my library, Charles Ng and Leonard Lake. I did a very in depth profiling on both of those, and it's a very good live. So you might check it out in my library. It is under the lives tab. Let me see how. Okay, do you show this like StreamYard? Okay, it says my favorite experiment with human behavior is hiding things in plain sight. I swear, guys. Yeah, because that makes sense. If you're in plain sight and people are looking for somebody socially inept and different, well, and you're in plain sight, they're not going to see you. Maybe that's why it took so long to really get on to Brian, because no TA would be in plain sight. This killer had to be hiding, which Brian was not. So that made it even more mysterious that he continued to do it. Number three, serial killers are only motivated by sex. While sexual lust is the major motivation of many serial killers, there are many other motivations such as thrill seeking, attention getting, anger, financial gain, religious or ideological reasons, and perhaps the greatest, a sense of power. So let's talk about that a minute. Many times people believe that serial killers are only motivated by sex. It must have been a sexual assault type of crime. They must have been looking for sex. That's why they killed them, because they couldn't have sex, blah, 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 blah. Well, according to this, a sense of power is the greatest motivator behind serial killers. All these others, not so much. Number four, it says serial killers travel and operate interstate. While a number of serial killers travel around the country trolling for victims, most conduct their operations within a well defined geographic comfort zone when they feel confident. This comfort zone typically centers around their home or their place of employment. So, how many people have been caught that have killed multitudes of people not far from their jobs? You know what I mean? How many people that you follow have been. This is coming from a textbook out of my criminology class that I took toward my bachelor's. So I'm reading straight from a textbook. Cuff you, and thank you for being in here. I haven't seen you in a while. Hi, Melissa. How you been? And not that it matters, but I am remonetized. So if you guys want to send me a super chat just for no other reason or whatever they are, super chats, whatever those things are, feel free. You don't have to. It's not recommended to be on this channel. I'm just I'm just trying to figure all this out again, because I'm trying to change my streams from StreamYard to some other streaming platform that is easy to maneuver, and you guys, it's in the beginning of the video. It's in the beginning of the video. When I'm toured I mean, hold on a second. I can go back and look it up. Hold on a second. The book is called Criminology by Anthony Walsh and Cody Jurgensen. And it is, um, that is the title. Can y'all see that? That's the book. It's one of the books in one of the courses that I had to take toward my bachelor's. And that's why I'm using it. It is very authentic. Um, so let's go from that one about them being interstate. The only serial killers that I've really heard that are interstate are obviously the truckers. And another one that I've heard about is Israel Keys. As far as other ones, I mean, there was one that was an ex football player that was traveling from state to state, but nothing across the U.S. Um, I've heard countless stories of truckers being interstate killers, traveling from location to location. Another myth is serial killers cannot stop killing. While most serial killers do continue to kill until they're caught or die, there are some well known killers who may have stopped for years before starting again. For instance, Dennis Rader, the infamous BTK, bind, torture, kill serial killer, murdered 10 victims from 1974 to 1991 and did not kill again. He was caught in 2005 because he wanted to tell his side of the story when someone was writing a book about the unsolved BTK killings. So that is a myth that serial killers cannot stop killing. Myth number 6, all serial killers are insane or evil geniuses. And this is something that does perpetuate throughout the true crime community. There is a myth in the true crime community that um, all serial killers are insane or evil. They must be insane, okay? Which is not true. So most serial killers probably fit the criteria for psychopathy or antisociality disorder, but very few qualify as mentally ill. And that's why I was saying one night on another live that mental health, just because you have mental issues, does not make you a serial killer. It does not make you a killer because you have mental health issues. That does not mean that instantly you're going to become a serial killer. Example, schizophrenic or legally insane, nor are they geniuses able to outsmart the law at every turn. And this is one of the labels that Kohberger was given by the true crime community, that he was so smart that he was able to outwit the police. That just because he had all of those degrees, he was obviously smarter than the police, which he was not. The IQ of the serial killer varied considerably. The genius myth probably derived from the published IQs of particularly infamous serial killers such as Ed Kemper. He had an IQ of 136. Ted Bundy had an IQ of 124. The Radford serial killer data found that the median IQ was 87.5, half the serial scoring above that number and half below. I believe that this scale, if my mind recalls correctly, and y'all definitely help me out here, isn't anything below 50 mentally challenged? I thought I heard that Kohberger had an IQ of 114. I might That might have been wrong, but y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I'm cool with that. I don't like to spread, you know, incorrect stuff, but I thought that anything lower than 50 was like MR. And the here in the it said the U.S. serial killer with the lowest IQ is Simon Perella, 4 victims with an IQ of 57. And the serial killer with the highest IQ is 160 is Theodore Kaczynski, a PhD mathematics professor known as the Unabomber, who killed 3 and injured 23 and the spate of bombings from 1978 to 1995. Here's another myth, okay? Serial killers want to get caught. Who would want to get caught? Honestly, think about that a minute. You're doing the most. Killing is the most, okay? So I would never believe that you would want to get caught. This is far from true and probably derived from amateur psychoanalysts. Serial killers plan their crime. They target selection, the acquisition, the control, and disposal with great care, getting better at it with each victim. They often have such feelings of power that, contrary to wanting to get caught, they feel they cannot be caught. So that's where that statement about Koberger um, was stated about he did the perfect crime because he didn't do the normal things that other killers did. But he was so sloppy in other areas that it made it easier for them to catch him. You know what I mean? Myth number 8. Serial killers are never women. I can already tell you that this is wrong because there are women serial killers. There's one right there. That's my favorite person, Eileen Warnos. Her story is so amazing. I have done extensive research on her due to the fact that her story is so sad, so dramatic that you would have to know her story in order to understand how she did what she did. It says IQ below generally considered indicative of intellectual disability, and mid is 50 to 69. Okay. I do like how this broadcast on the bottom of the screen. That's pretty cool. I might use this, but I heard that there's like a limit of how much you can stream. Diagnosis also requires evidence of adaptive functioning deficits in the areas like communication, self care, social skills, and academic skills. Okay. So let's talk about myth number 8. Serial killers are never women. This myth is not listed by the FBI, but one we address anyway because there are female serial killers. As Photo 12.2 shows, serial killers are found among both sexes and all races and ethnic groups. Otis Toole murdered at least 6 victims, but claimed more. Eileen Warnos killed 7, and John Thomas killed at least 17. When Eileen Warnos was arrested in 1991 and charged with the shooting deaths of 7 males whom she had picked up while working as a prostitute, she was dubbed America's first woman serial killer because she fit the definition of a true serial killer as a person who kills for no rational motive. Yet there had been a number of others before her. Nursing home proprietor Amy Archer Gilligan, who may have murdered up to 100 patients in her charge from 1907 to 1914. Like most female serial killers, she killed for financial reasons. Thus, the key distinction between male and female serial killers may be that there are no female counterpart to a Bundy or a Gacy to whom sex or sexual violence is a part of the murder pattern. Seagrave, 1992, 1995. And there are the 3 that they just spoke of. There's Eileen Warnos. If you haven't checked out her story, you need to. You really do. You really do. I mean, because it's like, wow. I watched that movie Monster, and it'll blow your mind. All the documentaries on YouTube, you need to check it out. if you really are into looking into the mind of a serial killer, she is the prototype to check out. She is definitely one to that has under an interesting story, let's say the least. So it says prevalence of serial killing. No one knows exactly how many serial killers there are at any given time, or how many murders per year are attributable to them. This presents the number and rates of serial killers per million in the U.S. from 1900 to 2010, broken into decades. For instance, the last bar represents the 245 known serial killers operating from 2000 to 2010. The increase in the rate of killers from 1950 to the 1990s is probably only partially a real increase. The unknown portion of the increase may be attributed to improved law enforcement methods initiated during the latter period. The increase in other forms of homicide, including spree and mass murder during the same period, however, leads us to conclude that a good part of the reported increase in serial killers represents a real increase. So here it is from 1900 to the 1990s to 2010. As you can see, right before 1990, which was 1980 to 1990, this is a 10-year span. This was the highest span. And then in 2010, between 2000 and 2010, it dropped off at 245. So let's see what the colors represent, the rate and the number of people killed. So the rate that they were being killed versus the number of people: 245, 452, 549, 410. So think about these years and what was going on during that time frame. Could that have played a role in any of the increase of the serial killers? It is interesting. I had to take this. This was one of the books that was in my criminology course. So a lot of time people tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I just throw stuff out there without really knowing what I'm talking about. No, this shows you otherwise. The witches were burned at the stake for their property and wealth that the state adores in a way. You're right, they were killed at the stake. You're right. We have identified several new serial killers in that 5 year period. Yeah. So tell me what was going on between 1960 and 1990 that increased the possibility of serial killers. Can you think of any reason why that would have occurred? Because we're going to talk about the typology, all right? Although all serial killers have a common killing goal, they have different psychological motives. They have provided a typology to divide serial killers into four broad types: visionary, mission oriented, hedonistic, and power and control. These are not definitive categories that all serial killers can be neatly assigned to. Many serial killers may evidence aspects of all types of various times. So these are the four that these authors um, divide into these four types. So think of some of the killers that we have studied over time. Think of Koberger. Was he a visionary, mission oriented, hedonistic, or was he into power and control? So we're gonna talk about it so that you can be thinking about it. Think about BTK. Think about Richard Ramirez. Think about Jeffrey Dahmer. Think about these people, okay? So here's the first one. The visionary serial killer is typically out of touch with reality. They may be psychotic and feel to commit murder by visions or voice head. And that's the person I thought about because I was watching this one earlier. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, who shot mostly young lovers parked in their cars, was this type of killer. The sexual assault of victims is not usually a component of the visionary killer's pattern. So the visionary killer is stereotypical dysfunctional loner. So the next time that you hear about a crime where an individual is claiming that they're hearing visions or they're seeing visions or voices in their head, this is the visionary type killer. Let's see what Tuffy says. She said the dramatic rise in serial killing between the 60s and 90s, often called the golden age of serial murder, can be attributed to a mix of social, cultural, and technological factors. All right, thank you for that. You are on it tonight. Thank you so much for this. Baby boomer, more people, and the opportunity for secret success. You are both on it tonight. I appreciate you guys. So, I mean, I don't know if you're taking notes or not, but it might be a good thing to really take notes as I'm talking about this because true crime, if you're really into true crime, the real stuff, this is what you will be able to see when you're doing your own research on these criminal acts. What type of killer is this? First of all, are they a mass murderer? Are they a spree killer? Or are they a serial killer? And I've given you the definitions of all three. So now we're breaking it down to what type of killers they are. This is the visionary. Think of David Berkowitz, the son of Sam. So the mission orientated serial killer feels it is their mission in life to kill certain types of people, such as prostitutes. Unlike visionary killers, mission orientated killers do not have visions or hear voices telling them to kill. They define their own undesirables and set out to eliminate as many as they can. The black Muslim group, the Angels of Death, which operated during the 1970s in California, targeted white devils and may have killed more people than all other serial killers combined during that period. One estimate put the total number of victims attributed to the group at 270, although other sources put the official count at 71. So think about this. Would what that guy called the Green River Killer, would he have fallen into this category of mission orientated serial killer because he killed prostitutes? Um, what's another one? The one in freaking Long Island, the Long Island Beach Gilgo Beach Killer, the Long Island Gilgo Beach Killer. He killed prostitutes, escorts. There's tons of them that just kills prostitutes. There's one called the Grim Sleeper, and he was out of the Midwest somewhere. There's a lot of them that just kill streetwalkers. There's the there's the eyeball killer out of Texas, Dallas, Texas, to be exact. He would cut the eyeballs out of his victims after he killed them, and so their eyelids shut. That's a good question. Would you think Israel Keys was a mission orientated? He might get addicted to it like a gambler, can't help but love it. Well, let me answer that question first. Do I feel that Israel Keys could have been mission orientated? Let's look at Israel Keys' case, okay? Israel Keys Back when I did the Nomadic Devil series that's in my library, go check it out. It's the whole book read by AI. So if I can remember correctly, Israel Keys would kill individuals not because of any particular reason other than it would be a random act. It's like he had kill kits all over the US. He would go hunting for people. And I don't think it really mattered who it was, but it looks like the mission orientated person would be more specific on, like, let's say they don't like redheads. So this person would go and kill as many redheads as possible just for the fact of, you know what I mean? He said, sorry, this is the first one I have followed, Brian Koberger. Okay. That's fine, Melissa. You're doing good. And he planted kill kits everywhere. Yes, he did. So I wouldn't say he was a mission orientated serial killer, but that's why I'm doing this, because it's always good to know where these serial killers lie. You know what I mean? Let's look at the next one. Let's get back to the mission orientated after we get through these, and let's see if he really did fall under that. The hedonistic serial killer is the majority of serial killers. He kills for thrills, engaging in perverted sexual activity. The hedonistic killer is such a self centered psychopath that he considers someone's life less important than his sexual pleasure. Edward Kemper is an example of this type. He had been diagnosed as psychotic as a teenager after killing both his grandparents, but he never claimed that voices made him kill. Okay. So let's look at Israel Keys a minute. He would rape his his victims. You know, I think it's cool that it's raining in the background now. That's what's cool about this. Um, yeah, he might be a mix of two types. He definitely enjoyed it. He definitely enjoyed it. And he definitely was a psychopath. I am 100% certain that that's what he was. Jack the Ripper, more famous nowadays in the history of royalty. Edward Kemper is fascinating to me. I've never deep dove in that. Him and Ed Gein, I've never deep dove into those two stories, but I feel that I have to. Otherwise, I'm a poser in the true crime genre. You know what I mean? Like, I feel that I have to do both of those because they are like the names of names. You know what I mean? So here's another one. The power and control serial killer gains more satisfaction from exercising complete power over his victims rather than from bloodlust, although sexual activity is almost always involved. Like the hedonistic killer, the power and control killer frequently suffers from some kind of sexual inadequacy. Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer are examples of this type of killer. Both men would keep the bodies of their victims, women in Bundy's case, men in Dahmer's case, for some time after killing them, often washing and grooming them like dolls. Dahmer went several steps further and tried to create sex slave zombies of his victims by drilling holes in their heads and pouring acid into the holes. He also cannibalized several victims. So, if we're gonna go with Israel Keys, I would say he was he was a little bit of power and control and hedonistics. Yeah, I do need to do Kemper. I have not deep dove into the cases because of, you know, they're the epitome of true crime. They are like in true out there. They were so let's think about Bundy. They said that there was some form of sexual inadequacy. And let's look at let's look at Brian Koberger a minute. I don't know if y'all remember early on, there was like Reddit post or 4chan, which I really didn't think of as official, um, correct information, but one of them made me think a little bit. One of the ones that I read talked about the killer, or was it that dude inside looking was talking about the killer potentially having some kind of sexual inadequacy or erectile dysfunction, one of the two. And one of the screenshot that I read from that, was it inside looking? I get those two confused. Inside looking, the one where paparazzi, one of those two. I get those confused, but you know, the philosophy, don't really, you're gonna lose control of a person. I'm here. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? I had a connection issue. Can y'all hear me? Melissa said, that's what I said in the beginning. Uncircumcised. Okay. All right. Good. Good. So let's look at that a minute. And I'm not laughing at that. Okay. But what kind of issue would that? Jesus. I am getting booted and booted and booted. I'm here. I'm here. Just hang. Don't leave. Um, I understand that. I understand that. Don't leave. I don't know why I'm having issues, but it always seems to happen. So let's stop right here before I go on to the next one, because if I get cut off, I don't want to have to rehash all this stuff again. But I'm enjoying discussing this with you guys. And I will do some more out of that book, okay? So let's talk about the sexual inadequacy and why that would be such a big deal for somebody. for somebody to be killing people because of your sexual inadequacies. And I don't want to make it all about sex. I don't want you to think, well, okay, sex is one thing, it's like the intimacy portion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the power and control, almost kind of like a rapist has, okay? Because when they rape, it's not about intimacy. It's not about love. It's not about dominance more than it is about power and control. Even though dominance is about power and control, I'm talking about a level in which you have no way of feeling any other way than being victimized. You know what I mean? So there's a solar storm. Okay, that might be what's going on because it's been happening the last like week. Am I clear to you? Am I clear to you? Yeah, rape is about power. And we've heard that he was into the pornography that did talk about overpowering women when they were in their sleep or under the influence of chemicals. So, if you have an inadequacy of sexual ability to perform, it would always be a better way to over dominate somebody when they're asleep because you don't have to worry about performing, so to speak, because you have the upper hand. And I believe that that's one of the motives of this crime. The intent was him going into the house to commit a crime. The motive would have been to either rape or confine one of the females upstairs, whether it be Kaylee or whether it be Maddie. I know you hate that. I know you do. I know you hate that. But if that is one of the theories regarding his inadequacy, then that would make sense. You know what I mean? If he truly was, if that is um one of the reasons, because think about if you're fixated, usually as a 13-year-old boy. Now it's getting down to like 11 and 12. But think about being a young boy or a young female. When you first start to experience um when you start to experience that desire for the other gender or the same gender, whatever it is that you desire. And let's let's think about your first experience. And it doesn't go the way that it should. Let's say you go to kiss somebody and you hear later on that they said you can't kiss worth a crap. That's going to devastate you. Do you think BK had kissed before? I believe he probably had. I believe that he probably did almost get to the point of intercourse. He probably was shamed if it is true what Melissa says. I don't have any reason to call her a liar. If he did have that issue, then it could have been embarrassing to him, you know? So let's think about him being involved with somebody and he wanting to experience that normality that most young guys and young women want to experience. So this starts to occur and it never happened. Each time he goes, and that can explain the heroin use as well, you know? And people say, well, why would sexuality be such a big deal to cause somebody to eventually become a murderer? Defined by his own words, okay? So if you're really in tune with the sequences of psychology and how nature versus nurture affects individuals, you will really understand that throughout time, there's a normal course that happens to people, and there is an abnormal course defined by abuse, whether it be your own abuse towards yourself or your abuse by your parents or anything like that, that causes you to bounce out of the normal realm of functioning. So this happens with some individuals early on in life. So they feel ostracized from society. So they start hurting animals. They start wetting the bed. They start doing all these things because they are not looked at as quote unquote normal. Does this make sense to you guys? This makes sense. Let me know if this makes sense. I don't know. There's some special features on here. I don't know if you can like put thumbs up or whatever, but this is a cool streaming thing. I really like it. I gotta learn it better, but I'm enjoying it so far. I hope you guys are as well. I don't have my the video portion down where I can do the intro and the outro, but that's just formality. Y'all understand it. So what I'm saying, does that make sense to you guys? Hey Cougar, how you doing? Does that make sense to you guys as far as what I'm presenting that would eventually lead to an existence of miserable living where you have think of Elliot Rodger. Y'all remember his story, right? You're right. This tragedy never should have happened. You're right. You're so right. Think of Elliot Rodger. People make fun of his story because he was fixated on getting a girlfriend and being in love. Okay? Here's a different one. Well, think about that. Elliot Rodger. He was fixated on all the wrong things, right? So instead of uh, instead of wondering and working on himself, he ex- he expected people just to fall in love with him randomly by not putting any effort in. That's where his mindset was. And people say, well, he should have just threw his shot out there. You know what I mean? Well, easier said than done. The guy already, if you've read his manifesto, you understand that he didn't have that capacity to just throw that shot because he had such an entitlement mentality where he expected people just to throw themselves at him, women to just throw himself at him. He didn't want to make any effort because he viewed himself as the supreme gentleman. He viewed himself as dressing nicer, just like all the guys that got the girls that he was fascinated with. You know, he drove the fancy car, he had the fancy shades, he highlighted his hair. You know, he did all this and that and the other, and still it did not work. And then at one point, he was fascinated with winning the lottery because then finally he could have any woman he desired. His problem was he was desiring women that were not in his league, so to speak. Attach attraction is a big deal. Attraction is a big deal. If they're not attracted to you, and you can't force somebody to be attracted to you. He did not understand that. He felt that by changing his appearance, then that was all he needed to do in order to get these females to ultimately fall in love with him and have sex with him. Well, let's look at Brian's case because we don't know a lot about his early years regarding females. We don't know if he actually. The only thing we really know is that he was obsessed with one female that he wanted and he could not have her. Okay? We know about that one early on. But after that, could that have been the catalyst that shaped the rest of his life? Because, early on in life, when you're young, people say, well, you should just get over it and move on. There's tons of people, as we noted the other day in the John Belushi story and the John Candy and Chris Farley story, when somebody experiences some kind of trauma early on in life and they don't get any help for it, this was the John Candy case. His dad died at 5 years old, and nobody ever talked about it with him. He never got any closure. So he spent the rest of his life trying to find outlets to help other people because in his mind, I'm sure he never felt that he let his father down because his father died and he wasn't able to save him. Yeah, you're on it. You're on it. Delta Berkey, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. He may not have any like company at all ever, so he didn't know what else to do. Isn't that the way it always is at one point to all of us? Exactly. Because we're moving through our identity, trying to form an identity with people who we look at as like minded. So if he was shunned at a very early age from this female, we're talking about Koberger now. If he was shunned early on from this female, could that have set the trajectory that ended up to be his life of potentially stalking, demeaning, overpowering women with his knowledge, giving him the power and control that was needed in order to feel more than less than toward the opposite sex? Because he not only apparently did this to his students, his female students, he did this to his cohorts as well, his coworkers. I mean, so think about that. Elliot had his reasoning. Now we found out that Brian has had his. We really don't understand totally because we don't have all those pieces where Brian's concerned, but we do have a little bit of it. So, how does that connect to the Idaho 4? That is the biggest question that people have. It is my theory that it connects to the Idaho 4 because one of the girls from the upstairs was one of the ones that he ultimately became fixated on, whether it be Maddie or Kaylee. And how did he potentially meet them? Hell, the campuses were only, what, 10 miles apart? And Kaylee was always over there in the WSU area at those bars. And chances are Maddie was as well. We don't know their every move of the whole time that they were in that area. We don't. Randy Fur, what's going on, brother? I'm trying out a streamer to see if I like this better than StreamYard. I'm glad you're here. We're talking about personality disorders and how people become who they are later on in life. You know what I mean? So we're talking about a lot of times, yeah, he killed her nicely according to your words. We didn't hear that she was overkilled like Kaylee. We didn't hear that she was overkilled like Xana. And even Ethan was killed without overkill, as we've heard. So that makes a lot of sense, Melissa. If he was really after Maddie, then he didn't want to hurt her because she was the object of his desire. The more I've heard about that case, the more I believe that Kaylee was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Xana was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And Ethan, he was asleep. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were all obstacles of him having time and the ability to get what he wanted, which was Maddie, right? So, yeah, she was interrupting. This gave him the energy to keep killing an already dead body. You're right. So think about that. If you're going into the house, you're waiting for the light to go off. You've watched this house, even though there was never any information about stalking. How did he know about this house? Did he look it up on the internet? Did he look at the Zillow um, rooms that we've looked at on the channel? Did he do the 360 view? Because there was a site where you could literally walk in the front door and walk all around the house. He may have not stalked them, but he did some kind of surveillance, in my opinion, you know? So, how did he know how to get up to the third floor quickly, efficiently, and do what he did, and then come back down and follow Xana? Because think about this, and I've thought about this countless times. If you're following a female to her room, which supposedly he did when he followed Xana, how did he not know that he was going to encounter a living room full of men that could have taken him out? Was he really going as fast as he could, or was he methodically looking around to make sure that there wasn't any men that could just jump out and hurt him? Or did he not care at that point? Do you believe that he was chasing her as fast as he could, or do you believe that he was taking his time to make sure he wouldn't get overpowered? Well, that does make a lot of sense. It really does. Because like I said, a lot of people don't get that portion. They think it's taboo. They think it's out of the realms, but you get it, Melissa, you really do. Because think about how that power and control and the sexual inadequacy of what we just read could play into that role. Then he wouldn't have to be, let's say he had sexual dysfunction. Let's say he had erectile dysfunction. Let's say he couldn't get it up, or it took him a while. So her being dead or almost dead, dying, would not give him the shame and guilt if it didn't happen quickly. That does make a lot of sense, and thank you for that. Because this is an adult channel. This is not a channel made for those that just look for fluff and surface level things. This is a channel that deep dives into the darker portions of true crime. We always talk about dark stuff here. And I guess that's why people really don't come here, because a lot of it is grotesque. But hell, so are these crimes, right? You said I was reading and rereading some of documents and Ethan's hyoid bone was broken. That is very out of place. Just weird that takes incredible force. And for those of you that don't know what the hyoid ah hyoid bone is, that is the bone right there by the trachea that is usually broken by either strangulation or a sharp, blunt force to that area. So either Ethan was getting up out of bed and was hit in the throat with substantial force, or he was choked until he passed out, and then he killed him, sliced him. If that is true in documents, that's how that would happen. Because as we know, the individual they use almost said tourniquets. Um, what are they called when you use a rope and you use something to twist it? I can't think of the word right now, but y'all know what I mean. That's how usually the hyoid bone gets broken. BTK used to do this to people. He'd use either a telephone cord or something, wrap it around like a screwdriver or something, and twist it until he choked them out. That's okay. You're all right. What is that word? God, I can't think of it. Um, it's not tourniquet. It's kind of like that, but it's a different word. I'll think of it here in a minute. But I hope y'all are enjoying the presentation. I hope that you enjoyed the fact that I'm not in and out on the live, which is pretty awesome that this has been able to keep me going. Um, I do need to really get really acclimated with this stream program because I think I'm going to use it. I don't think I'm going to renew my payment on StreamYard. $44 for that crappy service. I mean, and they really haven't done anything different, but they keep charging you monthly, right? Kind of like this. This is a cool backdrop. I mean, it's a cool way to sit there and watch while I'm talking. I guess you got to be a subscriber to the premium one to be able to. Let's see. It says press V. I did press V. Yes, a Garrett. You're right. That's exactly what that is. A Garrett. Yeah. See, I knew that somebody would know what I was talking about. What is shifting to? See, there's so much stuff on here. Like I'm trying to do this and I can't figure it out, but this is cool. Garrett. Yes, that's what it is. So, those of you in chat or those of you watching on the sideline, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button if you like the information that I did tonight. Um, I'm gonna do a lot more lives like this because there's really not much in true crime that I can get into at this point. There's daily, teachers sleeping with students, people being bludgeoned, there's people being killed, killing their babies, stuff like that. But there's not enough meat and potatoes to keep that those cases going. And you're right on point with that, Randy. StreamYard does suck, bro. And I'm really tired of paying um for that. I'm tired of paying for that kind of service only to get booted. And the other night was my final straw when I was trying to do a reading and it booted me. That really pissed me off. So I'm gonna try to see what this restream's all about. See if I can put my labels on here and stuff like I did on StreamYard. Because if I can, then I will be probably using this from here on out. Let me know if y'all enjoyed this a lot more than StreamYard. Um, Let me see it in the chat. Press yes if you did. No if you didn't. Um, yeah, I'm over StreamYard. I really am. If I can find something better, yeah. I just am not tech savvy enough to be able to download. I downloaded some of those other ones, but those are not really novice friendly. I guess if I play with them enough, I'll be able to understand them. But at this point, I didn't want to do a live trying to figure it all out. You know what I mean? And I've done Restream before. And thank you for that, Randy. That's really kind of you. Thank you for that. I've heard a lot of good things about Restream. Yes. You like this? All right. That's cool. I'm glad y'all did. So was it, I mean, did y'all get the notification? Because the notifications had not been going out because I was not monetized. YouTube had punished me for 3 months and taken away my monetization because I had done some stuff on the shorts where they viewed it as like copyright infringement, I guess. And they had warned me, and I, continued to do the trainings and stuff, but they had enough, so they took away my monetization for 3 months. So I just got it back today. I reapplied yesterday, and they re gave me back my monetization. That means all my members only videos are back up. Um, if you want to become a member to the channel, feel more than I don't know why I said likely. Feel more than I can't think right now. Feel more than able to get you a membership. If you were a member before, I don't know why it shouldn't just pick up your membership after that. I looked at it and it said no members this morning. So I gave 5 free memberships earlier, and I will be doing that in a couple of weeks to build that back up. Um, I saw you at the beginning of my YouTube stuff. That's awesome because I know that a lot of people were telling me that they didn't see my lives, they didn't see when I was on, stuff like that. Um, so hopefully this changes a little bit because I'm gonna try to do different things where I don't get in trouble by YouTube. I'm tired of getting in trouble. Um, for those of you that don't know, I am done with school and I've started a different position as well as still being a therapist. I'm now a PO. Let's see what these are. What is this? Let's see what this is. What is chill? Oh wow, I can like play music while I'm talking. You know? That's pretty cool. That's like ambient music to play while I'm talking. Wow, listen to the quiet storm with 12 gauge. No, I really enjoy doing these live for you guys. I really do. I mean, and even being off camera it's not a big deal to me to be on camera or off camera, but being off camera it really gives me the focus to be able to be looking up stuff and reading stuff for you guys. So a lot of times I prefer to be off camera, but a lot of people like to see who they're talking to. You know what I mean? A lot of people like to see who they're talking to. So um, that's why I get on camera on the StreamYard. Let me see what the design is. I think I need to upgrade in order to put my own logo up there. The font. Wow, they give you different font. You guys type something. Let me see what the font is. Let me type something. But like I said, it's going to take a little while for me to play with this stuff to be able to understand it. The door swings both ways. I don't know what you mean by that, but okay. I'm glad that you're back in here. Like, I noticed that you hadn't been in here in a while. And that's with everybody. There's a lot of you that used to come into my chat that don't enter. I want you to know that you're more than welcome. We're way past the Idaho 4 case, and now the stuff that I do about that case, like tonight, I just do it for informational purpose only. You know what I mean? Using it as an example for no other reason than that. Like getting all these random messages. The door swings both ways. We love 12 gauge investigative. Thank you. Okay, really quickly because it booted me. Thank you so much for everybody that came in here tonight. Thank you for all your kind words. Please spread the word that this is a kind community. No matter what people think, it's a good place to learn about true crime. I'm going to go ahead and go while it's still trying to connect. Y'all have a wonderful night. Y'all have a beautiful night. Stay safe. Like I always say, watch your six. Let me see if I can play something. Here we go.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying.